fashion in 2020. Today we're going to be talking about what would happen if we all stopped buying new clothes. My name is Emma Hope Allwood, I'm a fashion journalist and editor, and I'm going to hand it over to our panel to introduce themselves.
Hey, my name is Jaffa. I'm an independent creative. I'm 19 years old and I make clothes, completely upcycled, no waste.
Howdy, I'm Yvie Oddly. I am a drag queen, so I'm a designer, singer, actor, dancer, part-time mother. And I'm known for my DIY and unconventional clothing.
So we're no Sesso. I'm Autumn, Pierre,
Aaron,
and we run a clothing brand and we focus with upcycling.
We have a variety.
We do a variety of things.
Yeah.
I'm Justine, Porterie. I'm head of sustainability at Depop, where I oversee anything sustainability related, basically, whether internally, how to make us a better company, and externally, how do we shed a light and promote more sustainable behaviors in our community.
We thought that it would be great to kick off this conversation about the idea of new clothes versus old clothes, and how we can buy secondhand and buy better. We're just talking through the outfits that we're all wearing. I'm wearing this, it's like this patchwork vest top. It's got all these like velvet bits and like printed bits and net bits. This is by Junya Watanabe, who's like one of my favorite designers. And I got it into my clutches a week ago and I've been trying to find it for like a year.
Some Uggs. I put a Nike swoosh on them out of the same material that Ugg used, the suede. And so they're literally just
That is really nice.
Nike Uggs, yeah.
Next level. I today am wearing a baby blanket outfit. The sleeves are made out of like just some fleece I bought 4 or 5 years ago when I was a baby drag queen learning to sew. A lot of my style in general is just made out of like recycling, taking things that I've hoarded forever and people are telling me I should throw away and then turning them into something else. This little crop is made out of fabric I stole from Drag Race.
All wearing like our autumn winter 20 collection.
Patchwork for the most part. This is like a sweater that a lot of the pieces came from like Autumn's wardrobe that she's had collected over the years. Basically like a dress, like a giant sweater.
This is also from the same season. So this is also my old tweed. And that we cut up. And yeah, it's just giving fierce. And have time to put shoes on. Work this from my old sweaters. I used to be obsessed with vintage sweaters
And scarves.
and scarves. Yeah, so we she did all that craziness, amazingness.
I'm wearing stuff from Depop's cupboards, literally. This is an old like long sleeve t-shirt.
I'm super keen to find out a bit more about like everyone's personal style and also how we all started thinking about, you know, making more conscious choices about the things that we buy and wear. Justine, when did you start thinking about sustainability and thinking about how that impacted the clothes that you buy?
It feels like sometimes, especially when you're a sustainability person like me, you can project an image of being perfect in attainable standard, and that's definitely not the case. But I've always wanted to work in sustainability. I wanted to give back, coming from a quite humble family. So that's why I picked that field, because I thought this way I could take care of that society and take care of that the environment. I had not made the link with my day-to-day and my consumption habits right away. And I started that about 3 years ago and actually started to question all of my purchases and asking myself, is it actually in line with what I preach? I did not think about clothes right away, but then actually one of the very immediate outcome of this was that I stopped buying new clothes. In 3 years, I think I bought one pair of sneakers. So yeah, that's my like little shameful secret. But but the point is, you can find everything and have an amazing sense of style and express yourself with stuff that already exists. That's my key takeaway in my journey.
You know, I didn't really grow up with the ability to buy new things, and it kind of came from like a point of almost necessity, really. Where I couldn't go out and buy a new pair of jeans, so instead I would have to upcycle them and combine maybe two pieces and then make a single piece that fixed the original pair of jeans and added a little bit more to the ones that I had. When I was like 15, 14, I used to buy old trainers on eBay, restore them, like clean up the soles, repaint. From now on still, I've never really needed to invest in new clothes, because if I like something or you see something, you can kind of make it in a way, or just do your own spin-off.
When I started getting into drag and playing with the idea of self-expression in general, when I grew up and was responsible for dressing myself, I found it really interesting to try and go to places where I knew I could afford clothing, so secondhand stores. And if I couldn't even go there, then I started looking at, well, how can I do this myself? So my whole process and my whole message as a drag queen is self-reliance and recycling everything within your own life. If you can't make it yourself, then look for something that's already similar out there and edit it. And if you have to, as like the last necessity, buy new.
Me as well. I just grew up not having so much. So the first thing I did was to go to Goodwill, and that was like my tea. And I was just, I'd love the idea of other people not having what I have on, or unless they did in the 60s or something, So it still becomes in a way a very like consumerist thing at the same time when you're shopping in thrifts. So now working with like designers and with a brand, it just helped me even further that expression of not just buying because I can anywhere, but actually recycling, upcycling, and rethinking, and not just sitting with the idea of something, whether it's new or old.
I got really into like old Levi's denim. And so that was like a major like staple when the brand first started, was like patchworking with like old Levi's denim. Then from there, just like using old suits, and instead of being like sad because I couldn't like buy new fabric, I like used what was there and like made amazing things with it.
And you also learn that the materials from back then are much more like durable.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's kind of an attraction to like the old way of how things were made as well.
Exactly.
Like now everything's kind of like cheap, and in terms of like manufacturing, I feel like there's a lot less work, a lot less like even hand labor. It's no one really pays attention anymore to like the details, because it's all about the image that it is. But I feel like we need to pay more attention to how it is in reality, and kind of like it being long lasting, something that you can cherish for a long time. That's why I love, like anyone who creates upcycled, sustainable fashion. It's, we care about it being used for a very long time, rather than something like fast fashion, which is worn once and then maybe thrown away.
I practice fast fashion quite frequently, but that's why I do like upcycling more specifically than anything else. Is this was a dress that I was never going to use again, and instead of like just throwing it away, giving it away, like I got to keep the fabric and turn it into an entire outfit. So even if you like are into what is trendy right now, there's a way to make it work for you and like make it something that you can cherish for a long time, or turn into something else.
100%. Yeah.
It's really interesting for me because I am someone who comes from like a fashion industry background, working at a fashion magazine, going to Fashion Week. And, as much as I love doing all of that stuff, there is a part of me where, you know, every time that you go to a new fashion week or it's like a new event, there's a kind of pressure to like wear something new. And that's something that I kind of, I found really difficult to kind of get my head around, because I'm someone who, I also grew up like going to charity stores, thrift shops, do you have, what's the American equivalent of a car boot fair?
A flea market?
Yeah,
Is that right?
A flea market, but
Yeah.
out of people's cars.
Yeah.
Like my ideal weekend with my mum growing up was just like going to a car boot fair and getting an outfit that cost like £2, like a whole outfit. Like that to me was like, you know, what I love. And so working in the fashion industry, it's quite easy, I think, to become to be like distracted by like shiny new things. And it's been really, I think, an important process for me, kind of like you were talking about, Justine, to like get back to how I actually want to dress and what I want to buy, and what, you know, realizing that I don't actually need as much as I thought I did. For everyone, it's going to be a different learning experience, how we kind of will come to these realizations, and whether that's, you know, buying some fast fashion sometimes, but mostly then, you know, but maybe then you take that piece and you change it and upcycle it into something else. Or I think it's important to think about the fact that everyone is kind of on their own path, essentially. So Yvie, we have a question for you from Olivia, who runs Mad About Depop magazine.
In a world where everyone is so obsessed with staying in tune with the latest fashion trends, how do you ensure that you stay up there in the fashion game and stay on trend, but without tapping into all of the latest trends that fast fashion brands are pushing out there?
I've always found that I can keep on trend by ignoring trends. Because I mean, the old quote that style is forever, it really does hang true. And I think there are things you can take from trends. Like if wide shoulders are in right now and you really like wide shoulders, wear wide shoulders. But I am personally more interested in how I can express myself regardless of what trend is happening. So fashion for me is really important because it's just about playing dress up with who I want to present to the world that day. And I feel like the less I focus on whatever celebrity is wearing, whatever fashion line is putting out at any moment, the more true my expression for how I want to move through the world is.
Do you remember one of the first pieces that you kind of upcycled or transformed? What was like one of the first looks that you remember creating?
I remember one of my first jobs ever was working at like a Forever 21 or something, and so I took a crop top and shorts that I had for years and stole a bunch of their packaging tape to make like a full drag ensemble out of Forever 21 packaging tape. And I used the ensemble that I had before as like the base because I did not at all know how to sew.
Hey.
I know, Sesso, like, tell me about the kind of the like foundation of the brand and how you all started kind of making these incredible pieces.
The very first like piece that I made from recycled clothing was like these pair of like denim jeans, and they were patchworked with denim and leather. It was in 2013, I want to say. It was before the brand was like known as a brand. It was more of like an art project. And the denim pants had like over 156 different pattern pieces to it. And I like connected them together. It took like a few days to make these pants, but they were really cool. Now, throughout the years, we've been going back and forth with using upcycled materials and new materials. But the focus of the brand and what we're known for is definitely like the patchwork that we do, like what we're all wearing now, and all of that comes from upcycling materials.
I was initially attracted to the brand because of the patchwork and that it gave off a feel of being vintage in a way, maybe, because most clothes weren't looking like what I saw them making.
And I think it's really special because I just love like the piping, like embroidery that's also been done, because it also just like has a story. And I know from like the fall winter 17 collection, it was also like reminiscent of like, you know, like slaves being in here in America and just like putting like secret messages and like, you know, patchwork and embroidery. So it's just like
a lot of energy into it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to chime in about, like, not like being like not keeping up with the trends but being on trend. I guess one thing that we do is like we design based off of like how we feel and what we want to see ourselves in a lot of the time, and people connect to it. We also like are very in tune with what's going on in the world, and sometimes our pieces like feel like armor in a way.
It's interesting that you talk about how the design is connected to what's going on in the world. I wonder, how has the pandemic changed everyone's relationship to both your creative practices, but also the way you dress? I mean, I went from having like a whole wardrobe to basically living out of a bag of clothes at my girlfriend's house. And so it made me really think about like the amount of clothes I actually needed versus what I kind of thought I needed. How has the pandemic made you think about the clothes that you have and the clothes that you wear?
And it's probably true for a number of people, but the pandemic just put into perspective what we need versus what we think we need. Like, what's the need? Fashion is definitely a big tool for self-expression, but it's also there to just cover us up. But when you stay indoor, you want to feel more comfy. So it's not exactly the same experience. People are going to be way more mindful of, actually, do I need this? Am I going to cherish it? Is it going to add to my wardrobe? Am I going to be able to wear it a lot of time, rather than just buying compulsively?
I miss some of my clothes, but I wasn't missing them before, you know? But I had already started like downsizing my closet because it was clearly too much that we could make a whole collection, you know, of things and cut up things, and I would have no real feelings about it. So it was like, for me, it's treating things like not as like expendable or just disposable, you know, and just, making better, clear decisions.
I like the sentiment that the pandemic has made people more intentional with the things that they do purchase. That's kind of been my mindset, even though I really haven't bought any clothing per se or anything during the pandemic. I spent the last few years traveling, and there was this like sort of, if I need something, I'll buy it, and then that's what'll happen. And so this being here with all of my things is like the first time in a long time I've been with all of my closet at once. And it's been really nice to look at all of the materials and be like, I'm going to make something out of this. There were a lot of points of necessity of like, I can't go on stage naked tonight, but they left my clothes, so you buy something new. It's been nice to see what I have, and then to see how much of that I really don't need, and see what I still should probably keep in order to make new things, and just try and recycle as much as I can out of this.
For me, not much has changed because I primarily work from home, and the only reason I ever go out is either for like work events or hey, sorry, I've been delivered a dog. This is Smurf, everyone. So it hasn't really changed because I'm always, I take a lot of pride in always being comfortable, and I just like wearing sweats, comfy shoes, but that's always been my closet since I was a kid, and I think it will continue to be in my closet till I'm an old man. So I think, I don't need too many clothes, just a couple sweats, a couple hoodies, and I'm happy.
I wish someone would deliver me a dog right now.
No, lovely stress killer, to be fair.
So there's a lot of conversation in the fashion industry about, the way that things in the fashion industry work, whether systems need to be rethought, blah, 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 blah. I am someone who's like kind of skeptical about how much of that change is actually gonna happen. But I'm curious, like as designers, what do you feel about the industry? how do you feel about things like Fashion Week over the last 9 months? Have you found yourself thinking in different ways about the industry and about the way that you want your business or your label to exist within or kind of adjacent to the industry?
As far as our brand goes, we kind of have been able to take things back to like our version of the traditional way of running No Sesso, and not like just chasing a fashion calendar. We've been able to create and produce work more at our own pace, which has been nice.
Traditionally, we would just like have a show whenever it was ready.
Yeah.
But then we did start to play with like the fashion calendar just so we could be like on a major stage. But it didn't make any sense for us to participate in it this season because it's just like, we can put it out whenever we want to. We can just take our time and just really put in the love and the effort that it deserves.
We have a question, another question from the community for No Sesso. And this is from Sierra. And Sierra is a rework designer whose brand is called Frisk Me Good.
How do you think sustainability efforts have changed for genderless clothing since you began your brand? Do you think there are more, less, or pretty much of the same brands making efforts for sustainability right now?
Yes, or maybe it's about the same, because I feel like more traditionally, like smaller brands that aren't really focused on gender or don't really have as many resources tend to do like more upcycling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think that in the same way that there's more designers doing more sustainable things, there's been a bigger movement towards creating more genderless clothing? Do you think they've been kind of like happening together or at the same time? Or
some things are more sustainable just, by maybe how they're made. Mm-hmm. But for us, I feel like our focus is more like on artisanal work, and we're trying to like channel that into being sustainable and like not mass produced, but like for people to be able to buy. But right now it's like we're like painting on a canvas or something.
I don't think that the sustainability is mutually exclusive to like genderless whatsoever. Yeah. And I also feel like something that we do talk about a lot is people say that their clothing line is genderless, but it's just like, really shapeless silhouettes. And I think for us, like we just think of gender as of just like, just wear whatever you want. And that's why we say our brand is genderless. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Who have you got there? Oh my God.
Yes.
So I want to talk a bit about fashion and also culture's like ideas and obsessions with newness. At the same time, we think about things like, musicians, performers, they're expected to have new outfits every video, every album cycle, every kind of moment of career progression. There's a new look and there's a whole new wardrobe that goes with that. Justine, I wonder, how close do you think we are to kind of getting over this idea that there has to be a new outfit for every occasion? Or do you think that that's, we're not really gonna move away from that?
It makes you feel good about yourself, usually when you have like a big event, and that's very important for your self-confidence, and we can't deny that. I think you can get that feeling of new without the piece being new, and that's quite important. It's a combination of people realizing that piece that you're just going to wear once, actually you don't need to buy it firsthand. You can buy it secondhand. You can borrow it from your friends, because I suspect, Emma, you have loads of other friends who have, loads of amazing pieces that they just wore once and don't want to wear again. So borrowing from their wardrobe is a great thing. You can also rent, you can buy secondhand. Obviously, Depop is there for that. But I think we are getting there. It's just a cultural shift that needs to happen. And it's all about each of us and also thought leaders and people who have the platforms to share those messages.
The more public examples we have of people who are willing to reuse old clothing and to wear an outfit more than once, the better. Like, for example, like Tiffany Haddish last year made some headlines for having worn the same dress for hosting like an award ceremony that she did on a Tonight Show, that she did and she would make jokes about how she spent so much money on this dress, so why only wear it once? And for me, that was really important because that was like the first time I'd seen somebody who had reached that level of success being like, it is ridiculous to like play along with the idea of having to buy something new to reinvent yourself. And that's also like very important in my message to the world, is that you can have all of who you are and find new ways to reinvent it with like styling, with scissors, with hot glue, like do what you got to do. But there's a lot more life in clothes than we were willing to give them maybe pre-pandemic. And so I'm hoping that people will take that forward as well.
It would be really difficult just to see, especially musicians, not change all the time.
Yeah, I'm honestly not trying to see the same looks.
No, I need to see different.
I don't want to condemn them to like having to wear the same thing for an appearance, honestly. But there's also enough clothing to go around. It's just people have to be a little bit more imaginative about it, and down to earth about it. But yeah, it's just like a culture shift that we'll all have to go through.
Right. I think it's just like a really unfortunate fact that capitalism had to really sully art, you know what I mean, and to make it into this big thing to where we even have to talk about sustainability because we're, you know, our planet's in trouble, you know.
So I think it was last year I was commissioned to do a piece for Eurovision. So Quavo performed alongside Madonna, and I was commissioned to do Quavo's piece. And they employed me to make a brand new suit. They had a couple drawings I had to finish up and stuff, but I actually made it from completely recycled old suits and leather belts and all these buckles and stuff from old jackets. It needs to move in that direction. So that's one example of a professional body that employed an upcycler.
Jaffa, I'm curious because your work is kind of, obviously, you know, upcycling is at its heart, but it fits more in the world of kind of streetwear and sneaker culture, just kind of visually, aesthetically. And sneaker culture, especially, is very focused on like, you know, as well as amazing cult things, it's also focused on like what's new, what's hype, what's now, like, you know, what is box fresh, brand new. Do you think that people are gonna change and go away from wanting brand new things?
People are super into new technology, especially when it comes to footwear. There are ways that we can do it sustainable. You know, Nike's got this thing where it's called Project Zero, and it's to completely eliminate their carbon emissions. That kind of vibe where you're combining the new stuff with the old stuff and just creating like a modern remix of something that's already been created. Realistically, nothing this day is original. You know, we're all taking our perspective, our ideas, and combining it with what already exists. So taking that mindset and just applying it to product is, I think, the way forward. We just need people and teachers especially that are just going to constantly push the idea of yes, we can take something old and renovate it into something new. It's just kind of that idea of just pushing innovative ways. You know, people are making leathers out of cactus, out of coconut husk, see-through PVC out of plant membranes. And, you know, there's so many new technologies that are in consideration to the planet. I feel like even before fashion in the last 10 years, we've finally started to be in consideration of each other. You know, we actually start to care about the planet more, and we're investing our time into the demand for materials that do utilize our surroundings and are not diminishing what's around us. We're working towards actually sustaining life on the planet, and especially with a fashion industry that is not necessarily, we don't need fashion as humans, but we love it so much that it almost becomes a necessity to so many of us. So it's about just pushing those boundaries every single time and trying to create the demand for used clothing and straying away for the brand new non-renewable materials.
I'm curious, I think that obviously drag queens are some of the best designers in the world, in my opinion. But sometimes, especially with the drag race world, there's a sense that, you know, maybe the queens who have fewer resources might be at a disadvantage when it comes to looks. Like, what do you think it would be like if, you know, queens on the show had to make every single one of their looks themselves? How do you think that might change things?
I honestly would really love that perspective, specifically because there is one branch of the franchise, Drag Race Thailand, in which all of the queens basically have extra time each week to make their runway looks. And not only did that show have some of the best artistry that I'd ever seen, but it actually made sure that the people who were watching that show saw that people were capable of investing in their own personal expression, and that it wasn't all about what some designer they were able to pay for would do. Every year, there are going to be more queens with more expensive looks. And so when I got the call to be on the show, I personally took it as my mission to be like, I want to show people that you are absolutely capable of making it all from scratch and making it all yourself, and and cherishing the fact that your handwork and or somebody's handiwork went into this, uh, rather than just having a name and honestly a very boring trend that you will see that says nothing about you and your expressions. So that's always been my biggest battle within the drag community. And I think the more people we have who are pushing towards self-expression, towards being able to create yourself, and if the show itself were to push more design challenges, I think we'd see a lot more people who care about how you express yourself rather than who you paid to express for you.
Do you think that we're going to see, or do you hope that we're going to have a new generation of queens or a younger generation of queens who will be much more focused on creating looks sustainably?
I mean, I've seen definitely a shift in consciousness, but unfortunately, and this is why I was saying I think it'd be really important, it does come from the top. And if the people with the most exposure, the biggest platforms, are using their voices to tell you, I need everything new, I only wear this outfit once, then that's what the people at the bottom are going to think like we have to scrape for, is like, I'm going to buy this $500 outfit even if I can't pay my rent. We do need more push from people at the top to buy secondhand, to upcycle, to support smaller businesses, smaller brands, and smaller designers who have something unique to add into the world just by the fact that they're making it themselves instead of printing out, copy and paste another trend.
This question is from Josephine, who is the owner and founder of the clothing repair service app Sojo. So it's like Deliveroo, but it's for clothing alteration.
I'd love to know what you think about how much sustainable fashion, and more specifically the upcycling and secondhand market, actually relies on new clothes and the first-hand market in order to function successfully. Thanks.
It doesn't. I feel like it's. I think that side drives the hype, but you know, we have 300 million tons of clothing incinerated annually. You know, that's just waste that's just going away and being destroyed. So in fact, it's not enough people investing into secondhand clothing, but there is way more clothing than people think that is not for sale, that is used and is just sitting in a wardrobe somewhere or in an attic that no one ever is going to get the use for. Or it's just going to be dumped and that's it. There's way more supply than there is demand for secondhand clothing in this very moment. And it's just about pushing the agenda that you're not, like I got made fun of by wearing secondhand clothes when I was a kid. You know, you got to push this stigma and break the stigma that it is okay to wear secondhand clothing, and secondhand clothing is way more lit than some of the current pieces that are out there. You know, a good piece is timeless. We need to stray away from, you know, focusing on something being so luxurious and flashy and so image pushing, rather than how does it benefit to you? Okay, this piece is comfortable. I like to wear it every day. I'm going to get use out of it. It doesn't distress easily. And when it does distress, it still looks good. I only dress in tonal colors. I only dress in the spectrum of my late father's color blindness, actually. So, you know, there's things that you can make which are so personal and that just say enough about you, and people need to care more about what clothing says, what the clothing they wear says about them, rather than it says about, you know, someone else. or someone else that represents the clothing.
I totally relate to that in terms of coming from like more of a fashion background and having brands or labels that like I do really love, but it's like I love what they represent rather than, you know, I don't like I love Prada because I think it represents a kind of like complex womanhood and intellectualism, but also because I know that like, you know, if I buy a Prada nylon backpack, which is like one of the brand's like most iconic pieces in the world, that I'm going to buy that bag and I'm going to wear that bag for the next 20 years.
And it's going to last you.
And it's going to last you, yeah. And I obviously, I know, you know, buying luxury items is not something that's accessible for everyone. Although I think one thing that I kind of wish people realize is that buying secondhand luxury can be really, really pretty much the same as like buying like new things. I bought the secondhand Prada skirt for like £40 before, and that's the same if I went into Topshop and bought one. Justine, I'm interested, like as a sustainability expert, what has it been like seeing the conversation of sustainability become so much more mainstream? I remember as a fashion journalist writing articles about sustainability like maybe 4 years ago, and people just didn't really care so much. And over the last, you know, since then, it's been incredible for me to watch how much more people have wanted to engage with the topic. So what's that been like as, you know, an expert in the field?
It's great. Obviously, we need it. And as Jaffa said, the problem of the waste problem in the fashion industry is so big. And we're not talking about millions of garments. We're talking about 100 billions of garments. We can't even comprehend that, right? It's produced every year. And just like a reminder, we're going to be what, 9 billions? Instagram has its pros and cons, social media has its pros and cons, but actually it helped a lot to make those conversation happen. And again, like plant the seed in people's minds for them to realize, actually, I have my role to play in that, and I can vote with my wallet. I decide to buy or not. That's the first step. And then I decide who I give my money to. Should I, or would I rather give that to a person that I know rather than buying from an anonymous bigger business where I buy into a trend that next week I'm going to get bored of? I see it as a gateway to more sustainable living generally, because it's an easy thing. We're all wearing clothes, right? So it's something, it's a common denominator. So if you start asking yourself question in the clothes that you buy, then you can get into the food that you're buying. You can get into your electricity provider, where you travel, all these things. But at the end of the day, it's everyone's problem. Like the planet is burning, and we're using a lot of resources that we're kind of borrowing to the next generations. So being mindful with what exists already is the best thing that we can do. And starting with having those honest conversations, to me is great. And the more consumers, actually, I hate that word, the more citizens, people start asking themselves questions and then start challenging businesses, the more the change will happen. Because at the end of the day, we have a small footprint as individuals, but the big businesses have way more leverage. So that's where I think each and every one of us can make a big difference by using our voice.
It's like Yvie was just saying, that there has to be a certain amount that like comes from the people at the top with the platform. We have to also, I guess, lobby for the change that we want, rather than maybe just waiting around for those people to decide to like do something.
Exactly. Waiting.
What advice would you all give to someone who is thinking about starting a brand today?
It doesn't matter like the resources that you have, whether they're a lot or little. Don't wait, just like jump into it. Study your history on like how garments are made, where they come from, and just like be very experimental. Like it doesn't have to be traditional at all. Like just go with the flow and like have fun with it.
Not everything has to be perfect. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to experience things and experiment, because people won't even know if it's a mistake or not. You know what I mean? But I do think that it's really important for you to do everything with intention. Like, know why know why you want to make the garment. Like, who is it for? What feeling do you want it to give off? And I think that really differentiates like our brand from like certain other brands, because like we put our intentions in it. We actually care about what we're doing. It's not just about aesthetics.
Don't feel like you have to be following what is on trend. Don't feel like you have to follow what you're seeing online or on TV, but look at your resources and what you have, because even if it's not a lot, you have enough to start something. All of my first outfits were made out of my boy clothes, and now me and Yvie, we share a closet, specifically because I like to take parts of gender apart and I like to take clothes apart. So experiment, have fun, and just think long term. Like, is it going to really have brought you joy to spend all this money on a look that you'll wear once? Or would you rather put some work into something that, at least for me, it'll be easy to convince yourself to keep for time and time again?
Do what you want. Like, it's the most typical thing. Everyone says it, but literally you gotta be yourself. You gotta express what you feel. You don't have to follow trends. It's about expressing what you do, and eventually you'll be the trend, because everything you've made is based off of your own ideas. Draw inspiration from places that not many people can. I like to look at nature, for example. It's an image that doesn't repeat twice, and we all have our own interpretation of it. You don't have to look at fashion at all to draw inspiration for what you create. Every single thing around you was built by another human, no smarter or less capable than you and me. So you just kind of have to have that, mindset that yes, anything is possible, and if you've got an idea in your head, you are able to translate it into reality. And just keep that in mind. Yeah.
Well, I think that seems like a great place to end. So thank you so much, everyone, for being involved today in this conversation. And if anyone is watching at home has anything to add about the future of fashion, then just drop a comment below, and make sure you subscribe to Depop on YouTube to stay up to date. Thanks.